Go hard or go home. That's what the gym rats tell themselves before their final set of reps. Their passion is admirable. We could learn from their commitment. But steroid abuse? Really?
This is Signs of the Times Radio with Kent Kingston.
Well, this is exciting. We're here in the studio, myself, Kent Kingston, and my assistant editor and co-host for the day, Daniel Kuberek. Now, for I think it's about a year or so now, or maybe less, we'll have to check with Daniel. He has been very keen on the gym. He came to us to work for Science Magazine last year and was quite frankly a bit of a beanpole, but he got right into the gym and he's starting to bulk up and he's starting to get attention from the ladies and it's only encouraging him. Do I have the story right, Daniel?
Wow, you're just yeah. Okay, well let's just say that the beanpole thing. That I've never heard that idiom before, but that's hilarious.
Oh, okay.
That really I was really skinny back when I started. I was just looking at a photo last night of me like wearing the same jacket that I'm wearing right now, actually, and I just look like a stick, and it just looks massively oversized. Whereas now, I don't know. You be the judge. It looks like it fits better, I guess.
Yep. So, well, I mean, this is interesting, and I guess this is something that a lot of guys, like, you know, your age, in their, well, you're in your early 20s, so, you know, guys in their late teens, early mid-20s seem to get into. It's a male thing in particular, but certainly a lot of women are at the gym too. Are you seeing this, like, amongst a lot of your friends? Is this a trend?
I always find it really interesting to talk to people about why they go, what their motivation is, and it's usually, you know, oh, look, I want to look better, I want to feel better. That's not usually the reason why people go. It's usually something drastic has happened and they feel the need to sort of change things. Like, for example, one of our co-workers, Jared, he's got like a whole bunch of reasons why he started training heavily, but one of the reasons is he's going to Kokoda to do the Kokoda trek, and that's like, that drives him to do all this sort of gym stuff and a lot of running and to try and lose the weight and also to build his endurance. Yeah.
So he's doing a lot of aerobic stuff, like getting that cardiovascular fitness up. Whereas you, I seem to have the sense that you, like me, like a lot of us, struggle a little bit with the cardiovascular, and it's everyone loves bench press day and, you know, building up some pecs and getting some sort of rippling biceps.
Yeah, well, it's different for me because I started going to the gym specifically to put on mass, as in lean muscle that wasn't fat. So I didn't go there to try and just bulk up and become fat as well as big, but to become sort of like bigger as far as just muscle goes. So my sort of path at the gym is more towards weights. Like when you go into the gym and you kick off your workout with cardio, you tend to sort of have less energy to go heavier on the weights later on. So
sure,
if anything, it's sort of more like a cool down exercise maybe afterwards, but it's definitely not a priority because, like, for someone who's lanky like me, you only have a certain amount of energy to use up. And like they literally even say ectomorphs, which is my body type, should only spend like an hour in the gym because otherwise after that point you start going catabolic.
Which means?
Okay, so in bodybuilding speak, anabolic is when you're building muscle, catabolic is when you're losing it. So,
right.
Your body is using all the protein and whatever within itself to repair muscle and whatever, but after a certain point, it starts eating into your muscles. So that's why...
right. Okay, because you don't have those like fat reserves or whatever for your body to draw the energy from. So it starts actually going for your muscles instead. So you end up with the reverse effect of what you're actually aiming for.
So if you're going to the gym for like 5 hours a day and you're not like replenishing yourself properly, then your body's... You're essentially not going forwards. You're regressing in a way. So that's why I tend to stay away from cardio.
Look, that's fair enough, and I can see that you've got right into this. I mean, you've learned a lot, through like talking to other people, through reading a lot of stuff online, and you've actually written an article for us in the June edition of Signs of the Times entitled "All Juiced Up."
Actually, I was thinking about you while I was writing the title because you're just so massive.
It's quite funny. So you begin your article by telling us about that you are now going to the gym quite regularly, but I'd just be interested for you to tell us like what's the. I mean, you've been to a number of different gyms around the place. What's the scene like there? Because I imagine you must be meeting people. You have people with similar interests. What's the go?
I generally find that the weights tend to attract the male gender more. Mm-hmm. With my gym that I go to specifically, there's like an downstairs area where all the weights are and the machines and stuff, and then there's an upstairs area where girls can work out behind like this frosted glass area, so that no creepy dudes can go up there and be checking girls out. Or whatever.
Okay, so there's sort of a women's safe space there, is there?
Yeah, so. Yeah. Sometimes girls do come down into our area, but generally most gyms that I've gone to, girls tend to prefer cardio, men tend to prefer weights. Now that's a stereotype and a generalization.
Yeah, a bit of an oversimplification, but yeah, fair enough. So it's pretty macho downstairs there in the weights room.
Yeah, that's right. I think the scene is generally, when I started going to the gym, I was like the skinniest guy that was going, and some of the guys there are quite beefy already. So it's sad in a way because as soon as you get big or whatever, you start getting the steroid accusations thrown at you, like, oh, he can't be that big naturally. So when you go to the gym, you wonder who's getting extra help and who's not on.
Yeah.
But like really,
and it seems from your article that the conversation like between the guys goes in that direction like fairly quickly. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's just specific people that I've talked to, because it's everyone that goes to the gym has their own opinion about the way that things should be done. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I've literally had a few times when I've been doing like skull crushes. One time I was doing skull crushes, which is when you work your triceps out with a bar. And I've had... this is like lifting a weight sort of above your head from sort of behind your neck sort of thing? Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
So I had a guy come up to me and he was like, oh, you're not doing it correctly. You're not going heavy enough. You're doing more reps, reps is like one movement up and down.
Yep.
So a set is a certain amount of these movements.
Yep.
So he's like, the more reps you do generally builds endurance. Usually to build a muscle, you do around 12 reps. So you go as heavy as you can to do those 12 reps.
Yep.
And then you do like 3 sets of that or something. So I was doing more reps on a lighter bar. Mm-hmm. He comes up to me. He's like, "Yeah, man, you need to go heavier, man. You just go heavier. You're not doing anything, man." And
well, I mean that's helpful, isn't it? I mean, it sounds like, I mean, there's obviously a little bit of I know more than you, but it also seems like there's an element of, hey, we're all in this together. We have similar goals, so we'll give tips and advice to one another, help each other out, and perhaps build a bit of a friendship, or at least build some sort of reputation as being the guy who knows stuff.
True. It maybe it is a bit of like an alpha male thing. Like even I went to my hairdresser a couple of months ago, and he's like, "Oh, what did you get up to today?" And I said, "I'm going to the gym." And then he just started giving me all this like unsolicited gym advice. He's like, "Oh, bro, you got to do this. You got to split your chest and tries, back and bis." And at the time I was just doing like chest on one day and arms on another day.
Yeah.
And then after that conversation, I ended up switching up my routine. But still, like every person you talk to, rather than like listening to what you're doing and oh cool, the first thing you hear is about what you should be doing according to them.
Okay, all right. Now, of course, apart from what particular exercises you're doing, as you say, how many times you repeat a particular exercise or lift a particular weight and the way you do it, that's obviously a part of the technique of what's going on. But the other part seems to be, I mean, you mentioned steroids in passing, and we'll certainly get into that for sure. But the other part of it is what you put into your body in order to, I guess, maximize the benefit that you're getting from the gym sessions. What are some of the basic principles there?
Well, here's the interesting thing, okay? So I have this friend, and she told me, she's like, I'm all natural, in reference to the fact that she doesn't take any protein supplements. She doesn't take any amino acids and whatever. Her definition of natural is just going to the gym and then, whatever food she eats. And I thought that was very, very interesting. So generally, going to the gym means you're ripping your muscles essentially, and then your muscles repair themselves using proteins in your body they become bigger essentially. So while you're going to the gym, the best way to sort of aid in this process is to eat high protein, high carbs in my case as well, because I'm trying to build up my general body mass. So, you can take protein shakes. They definitely help with that process. So that boosts the amount of protein in your body. And it means that it's an addition to all the protein that you should be eating. But then there's other stuff. There's a lot of...
Okay, let's just break this down into, let's say, 3 categories, okay? Yeah. So first of all, it's just the normal foods that you have available to you, from the supermarket. You can choose to balance those in a certain way. Then number 2, there are certain supplements.
Yeah.
And then number 3, we'll get into the steroids. So let's just stick with category 1 for a minute. Like, what sort of foods are you looking at when it comes to, I think, what you just said? So protein helps you rebuild and repair your muscles after a gym session. Carbohydrates will generally, you'll put on weight whether you're exercising or not.
Yeah,
that's certainly my experience. So what sort of protein foods are you aiming for then?
Yeah, we had a podcast about this a few weeks ago where we talked about it as well. So if anyone wants to check that out and look into our back catalogue. But anyway, generally protein heavy foods include, beans, legumes, if you're plant-based, nuts, but obviously if you're not plant-based and you want to eat meat, then
meat and fish, eggs.
Chicken breast is very lean but high in protein.
Okay.
Like beef is high in protein, but it's also higher in fat. Eggs is good. Yeah, all that sort of stuff. Oh, if you're plant-based is tofu. Tofu is really high. Soy.
Okay, it's a soy protein. Yeah. Okay, all right. So that's the food. So you can choose to perhaps put more of those sorts of foods on your plate rather than choosing other things. Okay, fair enough. So all right, when it comes to supplements, like there's stuff I see stuff just in the supermarket shelves, and you mentioned protein shakes, and I imagine that's not just the usual food. Sometimes that involves particular powders and potions. What's going on there? What are the options?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is you have to really do your research to find out what's gimmicky and what's actually going to help you. Like, I'm not sure about how effective some of these things really are. I'm not sure about what the effectiveness is of fat burners or mass gainers or whatever that they're selling. I've read up about it, and a lot of those things end up not really changing anything. They're just
okay. What about whey powder? I'm pretty sure I've seen that.
Well, whey powder is that's a protein powder. It's made out of milk, so it's dairy. So I don't use it, but it pretty much just assists with helping repair your muscles after a workout, really. So
okay, all right. And I've also heard you wax lyrical about creatine. What's going on there? Is it a protein too?
Well, that's different because creatine appears in like meats and fish and stuff. So it's a naturally occurring thing that's in your body, but it helps your muscles retain water essentially. So you gain water weight. Your muscles appear bigger. It's about plump muscles. That's right.
not stronger muscles, and
it helps you.
Not more muscle fibers, just more water. Sort of more. Is it more spongy then?
Well, it's not more spongy. It's just helping your muscles retain water essentially. Whereas some of that might go to waste. So it's not like you just touch someone's muscle and it just like it's all blubbery or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it also helps endurance. People find that they have a lot more explosive energy. So if you're doing if you're a sprint runner or something, then supplementing creatine it's illegal. Like, just for anyone who's listening out there, it's legal. You can get it like at your local chemist and whatever. And so a lot of people use that just because of those benefits that it has. But then some people think that that's sort of cheating, even though it's not, because it's just a naturally occurring thing, and then you're taking a little bit more of it. You only really take like a tiny amount of it each day. It's not like you're taking huge doses of it anyway.
Yeah. And I guess some people might be tempted to think, well, look, if a little bit of protein or a little bit of creatine helps me build a little bit of muscle mass, then perhaps I should just like double the dosage, triple the dosage, quadruple the dosage. I imagine there's a point where that becomes less effective or even harmful.
And it's dangerous. I literally talked to a guy who was like that a few weeks ago, because you're only supposed to take 5 grams of creatine a day, and he was telling me he takes 5 times 5 grams of creatine, which is like
25.
I've been worried enough about the amount of creatine I take. Like you've noticed in the office that I drink a lot of water, because if you take creatine but you don't, because it's all about the water in your body and you're not drinking enough water, then you could dehydrate your body and harm your kidneys. So like I'm very conscious about how much water I drink, but to then take like 5 times the amount of that would definitely harm your kidneys, I think.
Oh, okay. So kidney damage is one of the risks there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So look, as we sort of go into the direction of steroids, like anabolic steroids, I'd just like you to recount for us this really fascinating and tragic story that you wrote in your article for the Signs of the Times about a young guy by the name of Aziz Shavershian. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about or Ziz as he became known. What was his story and what was your connection with him?
Well, yeah, it was when I was in high school, that around about when I was in year 11, I think his name started to be tossed around. And for me at the time, I didn't really know who he was or what his story was about, but it was sort of funny. Like the word Ziz, it just sounds hilarious. So that's like a shortening of his first name, Aziz. I think he comes from like a sort of a Russian background. Essentially, he started bodybuilding in high school to get the girls or whatever. And then,
he may have a background from overseas, but this is an Aussie guy, yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
He's from Sydney.
Yeah, he was living in Sydney. That's right. Yeah. So he started bodybuilding when he was in high school. He's a smart dude. Like he duxed high school, and then his bodybuilding thing became an obsession. He was starting to make YouTube videos, which is where he started gathering his like cult following online. And then in 2011, he passed away. He went to Thailand and he had a heart attack. In a way, his internet persona has grown since then.
Oh, really?
Because
Wow.
of that, like his legacy. Like I remember after that happened. Well, obviously, I started hearing about him after he had already passed away. But there was so many like Facebook pages out at the time. I'm not sure if they're still around. Like rest in peace, Ziz, and all this sort of stuff. People used to post memes all the time. My mates used to have photos of him as their like computer wallpapers. And, we used to sit down and watch his videos, and some of my mates would derive inspiration from his videos.
So he's pretty well built, pretty muscular, like very sort of well-formed, muscular guy. I mean, the little bit of stuff I've seen on social media seems to involve him walking around in public places without a shirt a lot, attracting a lot of attention from the ladies. And just with the stupidest haircut I've ever seen, I've got to say. But when you've got abs like that, perhaps you can get away with it.
I don't think anyone's looking at his hair.
That's right. He basically was a pretty good looking guy, and then had a great looking body. So I can understand why kids might look up to him. But you said he died in Thailand, age 22 from a heart attack, apparently.
Yeah, that's right. So he denied ever using steroids, but a lot of the people that were close to him said he was quite heavily on it, including another bodybuilder that I reference in the article by the name of Tim Ward.
Yeah.
He's a quite well-known bodybuilder, as well as Aziz's boss. He used to work part-time as a stripper in Sydney, and his boss, after his death, was saying that, he was a great guy apart from the steroids.
Oh, right. And I think even Aziz's brother was arrested and charged at one stage for steroid possession. So I guess there's a bit of smoking gun. I mean, it's alleged, but, I guess we just have to let our listeners join the dots there.
That's right. And Thailand is the sort of place for bodybuilders who go there to get steroids. Obviously the drugs are more readily available there. So like as part of steroid taking, steroid users sometimes go on cycles. So they'll use it for like 6 to 12 weeks, I think. And then they'll stop for a few months. So they'll go over to Thailand or whatever and use it for that amount of time. And then after that, stay off it for a while instead of using it all the time.
if they go to a bodybuilding competition, for example, they will likely be urine tested for steroids, and by the time they get there, it will be out of their system, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Which is interesting, by the way, because in the article I mentioned how I have a friend at the gym he's like close mates with everyone, and we had another conversation about it recently, and he was telling me about how pretty much every guy that comes to the gym that is competing is on the cycle. So it's almost like in a way it's a level playing field in that everyone's
doing it.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, that's incredible. I mean, obviously, anabolic steroids are illegal to use, in that way, for those reasons. Are steroids actually bad for you? I mean, Ziz had a heart attack. He may have been on steroids, it seems. Should you expect a heart attack from steroids, or is that a sort of an extreme outcome?
I think the side effects of it, the detriment to it, just so far outweighs any gain that it can have. Like, really, you look at it, acne, mood swings, your genitalia shrinks, you have liver damage, you risk kidney cancer, you might be infertile because of it.
It messes with your hormones, apparently. It messes with your testosterone.
Yeah, that's right. Well, like that testosterone is like one of the, most common types of steroid that is used.
Right. Okay. So you're actually putting extra hormones into your body.
That's right. Some of the steroids that are available out there, or not really available because they are illegal, but they're used to grow cattle for livestock, and then that's the stuff that people are pumping into themselves because obviously it'll beef up a cow, and then it also has the sort of same effect on humans.
Yeah. Look, I guess what a lot of us, listening to this would just think, man, I don't get this. Like, what would push someone, to put their health and even their life possibly at risk, by doing something like that? What's the psychology behind this? I mean, I guess I'm thinking, you've been a lot to the gym. You know a lot of these gym guys. You probably know people who have, it's quietly whispered behind their backs that they're using steroids. What's going on in their heads? Well,
really, the thing about the gym is you build up your body to a certain point, and then you plateau. Like your body just hits a certain point where it becomes harder to put on weight if you're trying to put on weight or whatever, and you're just at a point where you're just going to the gym and you're just maintaining what you already have. And I guess it's hard for someone who's going to the gym to push themselves and push the boundaries at that point when you're stagnating. So steroids absolutely will take it to the next level and push you much, much further. You'll end up much, much bigger than you were before. I guess that's probably one of the big drivers to why people would use it. Also, men have this sort of, women as well, of course, I'm not trying to generalize, have this sort of very competitive nature where you want to one-up the guy that's next to you.
Always comparing yourself to other people.
That's right, yeah. 100%. That's a big issue with a lot of people in society these days.
Okay. I mean, I guess what I'd like to do, and you do this a bit in your article, is to take this in a spiritual direction and to say, well, what is going on in people's minds and people's hearts, in people's spirits, that they, I guess, can get so out of whack. I mean, maybe that's a judgmental way to put it, but I guess I do see it that way. I mean, obviously, it's good, to look after your body, to look after your health, to, to present yourself well. But where you're doing that to the point where you're putting your health or life at risk, I think it's probably fair to say that's out of whack. What is going on spiritually, and do you think that the Bible or the Christian faith has any sort of answers or sort of solutions to get things back into balance, to get the way we think about these things back into balance?
Yeah, that's right. Well, as I mentioned with Aziz Shavershian, so he started out going to the gym to get girls or whatever, to get female attention. But then later on, he talked about how it's not about that anymore for him. It's about, pushing himself further and further. And I think that sort of thing can get dangerous in a sense because it can become an obsession. Now, there's a real fine line between being highly motivated, because to go to the gym, you have to be highly motivated to get yourself out of bed and go and push weights that are, in a way, you're going to feel sore for like the rest of the day as well.
Yep.
But where does the obsession point come in? Well, obviously, I think personally that, when you start taking steroids or whatever, for whatever motivational reason, that can be sort of in a way an indication of obsession, which is troubling, because in a spiritual context, it sort of can detract our focus from God or what God wants for us. I've never understood people who go to the gym who want to look good for like the opposite gender or whatever, because ultimately attraction is not about that. It's about the emotional connection that you have with someone. It's not about, the physical side of things. You want to look good for someone else, but that's really secondary to anything else. But anyway, so I think as far as spiritually, God wants us to be healthy. He wants us to be happy. And the gym really does that. For me, I was very stressed. I have been very stressed in the past. I've always been a stressed person. Going to the gym has really helped me, de-stress and decompress after a day. It's very therapeutic. You feel better about yourself, and then you walk into work the next day with, just confidence, which is really good. But at the same time, the Bible does talk about things that can be idols that are not specifically like, physical idols, but things that we cherish so much that they end up being our priority above everything else. And this might be one of them for many people. And I'm saying that in looking at my own self and, sometimes wondering whether or not I should sort of cut down on my gym use or whatever, or just remembering to balance things out.
Yeah, I think balance is a real key word there, because, I understand when, someone starts something that it's easy to get really obsessed. And so, as you say, when you're forming that habit, when you're developing that commitment, you need to sort of stay focused on it. But, there are so many other areas of life, like our relationships with other people, our work life, our spiritual life, that, that we need to focus on too in order to live a life of balance. And it can so easily get out of whack. And I guess for me, I think, if each of us is created in the image of God, that makes each of us sort of really precious and worth looking after. And so, as the Bible says, our bodies are the temples of the Holy Spirit. So that means, look after it. But there's a point where you're actually abusing it, which is what you're talking about when things go too far. I guess I'm glad, that Scripture does sort of bring us back to that sense of balance and says, hey, listen, you need to make, God's priorities your priorities, and, stop obsessing about yourself all the time. In the end, it's not about you.
That's right. And our bodies are really finite. Like when you're young, it's sort of the prime of your life where you can, look good and all this sort of stuff. But ultimately, we all end up becoming older, and our bodies start failing us. We don't look so good anymore. So it's
so glad I'm not there yet.
So you're investing in yourself, but ultimately we're all going to reach that sort of stage.
Yeah.
Sorry to mention, Kent, but you are definitely at your prime right now, man. But yeah, anyway, so there are far greater investments that we can make, and including our relationship with our Heavenly Father, our relationship with loved ones around us. Those will stay, forever potentially. Even when we meet Jesus again in heaven. So as far as the investment we make in ourselves, we just have to remember that there is going to be, it is finite, really.
Yeah. Hey, I really love the way you finish off your article here. I guess you hint that a lot of us are really insecure, when it comes down to it. But you say that the Bible has a special message for the insecure. And you quote a verse there from 1 John 3:1. See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God. That's a really beautiful message. That's not a message that says, when you look good enough, when you can lift enough weights, when you're beautiful enough, then God will accept you. Or, this is something that's saying, hey, right from the beginning, God wants to make you his child, just straight off. That's an incredible message of acceptance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing that you can always remember to keep your life in balance, because of that is the ultimate goal that we should have in our lives, is to keep our relationship with God strong.
Hey, thanks so much, Daniel. Really appreciate you sharing some of your gym journey with us. And thanks for writing this article.
Thanks, Kent. It's good to be here.
Today's episode was based on an article appearing in this month's Signs of the Times magazine. A subscription is just $26 for 11 issues a year. To find out more, visit signsofthetimes.org.au. Signs of the Times has been published in Australia since 1886 and is proudly produced by Adventist Media.
This is an Adventist Media podcast.